Hi there and welcome to Transpono Trailer Sales. Today I'm going to be walking you through your 2025 Wildwood 273Qbxl. We are just going to start off at the back of the unit. If you notice up top, you are pre-wired for a Furrion observation camera. If you'd like to get set up with that, you can contact the parts department, and the same goes for the Lippert stair system. It is just a collapsible stair system that hooks onto there, so you can get up and periodically check your seals. You got your spare tire also located in the back. And then there's these two connections here. So you got your city water connection. So if you're at a site with service, you can thread a garden hose in there, turn it on. It's going to pressurize all those lines without the need to run your water pump. And then right next to that, you do have your black tank flush. So the way that works is, you're going to notice this sticker here. Essentially all it's saying is to be sure that you do have your sewer connected and your black tank valve open. Reason being is because you're pushing pressure into the tank. If that pressure has nowhere to go, it could burst the tank. So just be mindful of that and always making sure you have everything hooked up and open before you use it. And then located in the back bumper, if you pull this tube out, usually it comes out a little easier than that. That is where you're going to want to store your sewer hose after your first use. We do have a brand new one located in the front compartment, which I'll go over with you once we get there. But this is typically where you're going to want to store it. Just helps keep as much smell out of the unit as possible. You got your cable satellite hookup right here. Now coming to the left, you got your main 50 amp power supply. You're just taking note of that notch, that silver strip here. Just lines up with this silver strip on this side. Push it in there, firm push, 8th turn to lock it in. And then if you've got that threaded collar, you can really lock that down. If you follow that cord back, you do have your standard 50 amp plug end. Now a lot of campsites may not have this, so we do include this 30 amp dog bone adapter, which is plenty to run on the unit right now. You are pre-wired for a second AC, which is why you do have the 50 amp supply. It does only have one right now, so 30 amp is going to be plenty. You do just have to use this dog bone adapter. And then to go down from 30, we also include a 15 amp adapter, which is a household plug, just so if you have the unit at home, you can plug in and run that fridge. But if you're going down to 15 amps of power, it's not going to be enough to run the air conditioner, so just be mindful of that. And then up ahead here, you got your main sewage holding tank area. Output, sorry. Taking that cap off, you're just taking note of these ears. They line up with the notches on this side. Your sewer hose is going to have the same ears, and it just locks into place. And then you got your gray valve and your black valve. You always want to empty that black valve first. It's going to be your dirtiest water filled from your toilets. And then you can come behind that with your gray valve, which is typically a little cleaner water filled from your sinks and your showers. Coming further up the unit here, you got your first side. The first side of your storage compartment in the front. You do get your starter kit, comes included with the unit. You got that 15-foot water hose, that 10-foot sewer hose with the adapter end, which I've already told you about, and then of course that 15 amp park adapter again, which I've already explained, and then just some other miscellaneous goodies, including one roll of 1-ply toilet paper and just some tank treatment to get you started. You got a 3/4 inch drive tool here. This is just a manual override for these jack systems. So if this were to work, it is electric. So you shouldn't have to ever use this, but in case it were to fail for whatever reason, we do include that tool just so you can manually put them up if you're in an emergency situation. Then coming to the front of the unit. Located on this front A-frame here is your battery disconnect switch. So with the battery disconnect switch on, you're connected to the batteries. The batteries are connected to the unit. If you were to turn that switch to off and pull this out, the batteries would become disconnected from the unit. The battery is housed inside this black box here. It is a 27 RV battery. And you got your 2 propane tanks right at the front. Typically, you can do everything you need to do just from opening up this lid. But just for the purpose of the video and so that I can show you how to change over the tanks, we're going to slide this right off. And you got those 220 right on the front, standard barbecue style. You just have to loosen this off and pull the bar and everything off to get these tanks out. Right on the front of the regulator, you got a selector valve. So with it pointed this way, you're obviously going to be drawing off this tank. If this tank were to go dry, turn this tank off, flip it over to the other side, and then you can turn on this tank. Turning them on, just a simple counterclockwise, just like any standard barbecue. Trying to open it up slower than faster. and that opens up flow of propane to the unit. Now coming around to the passenger side of the unit, you're gonna have your two stabilizer jack switches. You're gonna have one here and one way at the back there. They're both gonna work the same way. I'll just show you on the front one here. It's pretty simple. You just hit that extend button. Those jacks are automatically gonna start making their way down. Don't panic if they come down at separate times, because it is on an open system so that you can get them nice and level. Once you hear the motors wind up like so, you're fully extended. Keep it in mind, it's power, but these aren't for leveling, they are just for stabilizing, so be very mindful of that. Then to get them back up, you're just hitting that retract button. Again, if they come up at separate times, don't panic, it's just an open gear system. They will both come up eventually. Once you hear the motor wind up and cut out like that, you know you're fully up. And this compartment here is just the other side of that storage compartment. This is for your exterior little shower slash garden hose area, which the connection to that is just right here. Just flip this cap open. Take a note of those two notches on the water end. Line them up with the two notches inside the hole. Push, twist, locks it into place, and you can put the garden hose end on, or whatever end you prefer. If you have no end on it, it is going to run freely if you're hooked up to any sort of water or have the pump running. So just be mindful of that. We just leave this off in case you have one that you preferred over it. We just store that in the front compartment here. This is a dry erase surface 2, nice little thing for kids, or if you want to make a list for your next trip. A little further down the unit, you got your main entry door. We'll go over that in a few minutes once we get there. You got your service port for your water heater. Just a couple things you need to worry about here. The on switch supplies power to the thermostat inside, which I'll go over once we get there. And then you got your relief valve. So now I'm just gonna go over winterization because this is a tankless system. It's a new system. So typically on your standard, your older style tanked water heaters, you do bypass them during winterization so that no fluid goes inside the system. This system is the total opposite. If there is bypass valves on the back, which there shouldn't be, don't touch them. You do run antifreeze through this, of course, with it off. Run antifreeze through it like a normal situation, and then whenever you're done your winterizing completely, just cracking this relief valve and leaving it cracked open, because antifreeze, even though it doesn't freeze completely, it does gel up. The copper coils in there are so small that if you leave this closed, once they gel up, that has nowhere to go because it's expanding and it could crack one of those coils. So just cracking that open and leaving it cracked open when you're done all your winterizing. Then you got your freshwater fill. So if you're out boondocking or your site doesn't have water, you can put a garden hose in here and fill up your fresh tank, and that's what your water pump draws off of. You're gonna know that tank's full when you get that squirting coming out of the vent hose. I will warn you that it does come squirting out pretty fast, so if you're standing in front of it, you are gonna get wet. And then the drain for that is just right down here. Pulling that guy like so, opens it up. I did summarize the unit, that's why I have all these drains open, just because we do dip. We're still in the positives, but we get close to zero, so just as an added precaution, I did drain the whole system completely. That way you guys don't have to worry about anything. Whenever you first get to your campsite, you're just wanting to crack this open. It's for your range hood inside, and then whenever you're traveling, just clamping that back into place. That way you don't get any excess dust inside the unit. Coming a little further back, you got your two low point drains. Again, I have them cracked open now just because I summarized the unit, so I was just letting all that water drain out. Closing those guys off, closes that off. The low point drains is the lowest point inside the whole water line system inside this trailer, so cracking these guys open just lets all that water out in case you don't want it going stale or stagnant. Or after you winterize, just cracking them open and leaving them open just for the same reason that antifreeze gels up. So cracking these guys open just allows that for a place to go if it were to gel up too much, if there's not enough space inside the lines. You got your two 110 plugs on the outside, and then you do have your little kitchenette on the outside here. Flipping this guy open. You got your 110 mini fridge, so this will be on anytime you're hooked up to shore power, but it's not 12 volts, so it won't work while you're traveling. And then you got your griddle, little safety latch to stop it from slamming into the compartment while traveling. Just lifting that guy up. That'll allow you to pull that out. In the back here, just your manual, and then of course your hose. Always making sure you put those dust caps on whenever you're not using it. That way no debris gets inside the lines. Now, the way I do it is I run this hose down. It's like, works like a standard airline. You're just pulling back on the collar and inserting it onto the other end here. Whenever I'm inserting it, I always like to support the regulator a little bit. That way you just don't run the risk of bending it or breaking it or anything. Then once you come down to this end here, you run this hose right to the back where your quick connect propane line is. This works the same way as the other one, minus the fact if you're having your little valve here. So with this valve open, you're opening up the flow of propane, and it's an added safety feature. It's not going to allow you to use that collar, just so you can't disconnect it with it on. So you're closing it, inserting, locking in place. Then that would allow you to open up that flow. Disconnecting it, obviously the direct opposite of what we just did, just to save time. We're going to go over that. To get inside, just taking that assist handle, pushing it up, holding it 90 degrees, it'll lock in place. Opening up your door. To get those stairs down, you do have to have the door all the way open. That'll allow you to pull that latch and slide that back. The stairs will fold towards you. You do have adjustable feet for your campsite needs, so you can have nice and level stairs. They just lock into the track system. The best way to keep it level is just count how many notches are exposed and have the same on both sides. Flip it down. So I'm going to mention before we get inside here, you're going to notice if this door is all the way open, it's going to come into contact with that awning arm. So before you ever run your awning, always making sure you have the door folded 90 degrees. That way you can allow that awning arm to extend back and forth freely without running the risk of damaging anything. Now, taking a step on inside, right up on the wall here, you are pre-wired for a solar system. Again, if you'd like to get set up with that solar charging system, sorry, I didn't word that properly. Solar charging system. If you'd like to get set up with that, you can contact our parts department. You got your accent light switch. This big light switch right in the middle does turn on all the living space lights, and it is a dimmer. So if you slide that down, it's going to dim the lights. Pushing it up turns it on. You got an awning LED light on the outside there. And then of course your awning switch, pushing and holding that out while making sure your door is 90 degrees so that you don't run the risk of damaging anything. Gonna allow that awning to fold, push out. You're gonna know that awning's fully extended when you see the back of the metal tube and the little flap hang down. Unfortunately today I don't think we have enough space to get it fully out, but I will bring it out enough so I can show you the rest of the features. But you're gonna see I'm about to come into contact with that shelf. So there would have been that flap, and then you'd see the back of the little tube. Now if it were to start raining, you can take any arm, front or rear, pull down at the center. It's gonna change the pitch of the awning head, allowing water to now run off. Now if you like that angle better, because it does allow for more shade underneath here, you can do the same thing with the front arm. Just making sure that you do push these arms back to straight before you bring the awning in. That way you don't run the risk of bending anything. And then to retract that awning, it is just as simple as pushing up. It's going to say rolling in, and just making sure the fabric rolls in the right way. A couple things I'm going to mention about the awning, just at the end here, that if it were to be raining and you're noticing it's pooling, you're going to want to make sure you bring the awning in. That way it doesn't pool up too much. And if you roll it in while it's wet, at your next earliest convenience, when it's dry and sunny out, just rolling it back out, allowing it to dry off. That way you don't accelerate the growth of mold or mildew. And whenever you do have the awning out, always keeping an eye on the wind speeds. Just because if you get to about 5 km/h winds, it doesn't take much. It could rip the fabric or bend your arms, so just be mindful of that. On the left, you got your fire extinguisher, which is just like home. Pull the pin and shoot. And then of course you got your slide out option. Pushing, holding that button out. The slide out's gonna start making its way out. Once fully extended, the motors would wind up and click. Unfortunately today we don't have enough space to get to that point, so that's all we're gonna be able to put the slide out today, because I'm being mindful of what's on either side of the slide. Always making sure that you have enough room for what's next to you, and always try and double check the inside, making sure nothing's shifted during travel that's going to get caught in that slide and cause any damage. And then up on the wall, you got your JBL sound system control. So Bluetooth, this will just turn on the lights on this system here. And then you got your sound, pushing that, and then you can turn up and down your volume. That's going to be it for that there. We'll start off in the bedroom, just opening up that door. Light switch on your right. You come into the bedroom space. You do have a TV backer back here, coax plug-in, as well as 2 other plug-ins. All the blinds in the unit do work the same way. They're just going to kind of sit where you leave them. And then one quick pull will allow it to retract back up. You're going to notice this is a fire exit. Works pretty simple. Pulling this up, and then you can grab your screen and slide that up and hop on out of the unit. And then it's just as simple as sliding everything back down to put everything back the way it was. Storage all around the bed, and of course you got plug-ins on either side too. And then on the wall, you got your versatile bed control. If you push and hold that button down, the bed will start sliding its way down. And then obviously pushing the button up will tilt that mattress up. Personal preference of where you like it. Now into the main living space, you got your entertainment center. TV, just like home, not much I'm going to show you there. Except undoing this TV safety strap. Whenever you're traveling, always making sure you got that TV strapped. Otherwise, it's going to be able to move around freely, and you could run the risk of damaging something. Now, it's going to be hard to see, but if you come from over top here, you're going to notice you got cable satellite outlets here. There's a little black button that turns on that green light. That does turn an antenna on the roof. I typically leave it on just because it also improves radio frequency and cell phone frequency. But again, it's going to be a personal preference thing. Again, locking that travel strap. That way that TV can't go anywhere. Coming down below, you got your fireplace. Works pretty simple. Power button on the far right. Right next to that, you're going to go between your different flame colors. And then in the middle, you got your rock light color option. And then 2 in from the right, you're going to have your different heat option. So, sorry. Once you push it the first time, it's going to be on 0, so that's just this fan moving air. One more time will get you into low, so that's the low heat setting. And then one more time will get you into high, that's the high heat setting. And then the last button on the left is just a timer, so you can go anywhere from 30 minutes to 9 hours. And once that time's reached, it'll automatically turn this off for you. So in case you ran out somewhere, you don't want it running all day, do that. Storage down below with some included storage totes, nice little feature. This is a versatile lounge, so I'll show you the way it is now. You got your seating area over here, and this is a couch. If you move a couple cushions out of the way, and you have guests, you can fold this down into a bed, and then to get it back into a couch, it's just as simple as pulling, and you kind of have to assist the top a little bit to lock it back down into place. Now, another option you have to run this is just moving these cushions out of the way. Again, this cushion here is in just stake pockets, so if you slide that out, you're going to have to maybe move this cushion over just a little bit so you can see, but then this slides into more stake pockets. Of course, moving this cushion. Stake pockets on either side. You're going to see the one for sure. I'm going to mention this is whenever you're putting this in, just being very careful with the cushions, because it does have to go between them. And if you're not careful, you could stab it right into the cushion. Once you get them in, and then you have yourself a sectional. Turns it into a sectional. And again, you still keep some seating space on the other side, so it's going to be a personal preference thing the way you want it set up. Now this will also turn into a bed as well. Just having to remove these bottom feet from the table, set the tabletop inside the ledges, and then take your cushions to fill in the center. And another option you can have is you can turn this into one massive bed just by removing this right out of the way. Pull it, folding your couch down, and you have yourself a massive bed. Lots of different options you can do with that and play with. Lights are all on their center. Push buttons inside here. Into the kitchen area. This little accent piece does flip up. Gives you access to your microwave, which is standard, just like home. And then you got your range hood fan, light, and then come into your stove. This cover is glass, so just being careful with it whenever you're moving it around. So whenever you turn off your propane system and have it off for a while, it allows air into the system. And then when you go to turn the propane system back on, it can take a few minutes to purge all the air out of the lines. So whenever you've had the propane system off, first thing I recommend doing when you get back to your camper is just firing up your stove quickly, as it's going to be the quickest option to purge all the air out of the lines. Because let's say you didn't run the stove and you didn't purge the lines and you tried to fire your water heater or your furnace and your water heater only try to light 3 times, and then they'll throw a fault code. If you light this first, it purges all the air out of the lines. And then both the water heater and the furnace will fire right up on the first try, so you don't have to worry about troubleshooting or anything. But like I said, whenever it does come lighting this, it takes a few minutes sometimes to purge all that, especially the oven. It's a lot smaller of a gas orifice. So push to get the oven to light, taking this knob, turn it over to the side, pushing and holding it in, giving it a few seconds to purge. Hit that sparker, it does fire the pilot from right underneath, pushing it in for another few seconds just so it can hold its own. Once the pilot's allowed to hold its own without you pushing it in, you can turn it up to your desired temperature and it does fire right on up. Now I had the gas system already running a few minutes ago, and that's why it did fire up so quickly. Now underneath your sink, cool little feature Wildwood added. Nice little garbage disposal for you to use. Behind this false panel, if you pull that one screw out, it will come right out of place. And if you stick your head back here and peek, it gives you access to your water heater in case you ever have to do anything to that. And then this false panel here, you got 2 screws on either side. Pulling those 2 screws out, this false panel will pop out of place, and your water pump is right there, where there's going to be that bypass hose for winterization, where you can stick it to your pail of coolant. There's also going to be that valve that you're going to have to turn. And then since this is on the counter, I will mention it. Opening this up, the unit will come with 2 sets of keys. The purple key is for your door. This key is going to be for all the compartments. The white key. You got lots of accent lighting on its own center push button all around. Same thing with storage. Now coming to your fridge. Opening that up, fridge, freezer. Right down below is the temperature control. This does operate both, doesn't have individual controls. Clockwise all the way, turns it on to its coldest setting. Anywhere before that is a warmer setting. And then you just notice some off-grid writing. That's just letting you know the most energy efficient setting to have it on if you're running on 12-volt battery power. And then a charcoal filter to help with fridge odors. We do sell replacement ones here at the shop if you'd like to get set up with that. Again, just contact our parts department and they'll put together a quote for you. And then underneath, again, more storage with a few more totes on either side of this here. And so since I've already ran over the propane system, I did forget to mention propane does take oxygen out of the air. You got your LP detector right here near the ground. Propane's heavier than air. If this guy ever starts going off, you are just going to want to turn off the main supply of propane at the front of the unit and open up some windows and vents just to let some fresh oxygen inside here. Like I said, don't panic if it starts going off. Just make sure you open up some windows and vents and turn off whatever propane is running. It's also very sensitive to cleaning chemicals, so if you're cleaning your floor or anything else, or any sprayed a chemical around it and it does start going off, it's typically just the chemical setting it off because it's so sensitive. Don't panic, but use your best judgment. If you're to have propane running, it could also be that. Whenever you're running your air conditioner, you do have 2 different settings. You can run it with these louvers open, in which case it'll dump all its air down here into the main living space, or you can close them, in which case it'll push all its air through the ceiling ducting we have throughout. The furnace runs all its air through the floor portals we have throughout the unit, which I don't know where they are in this directly, but there will be some throughout the unit. 2 right there. Now getting to your thermostat, where you control both your furnace and your air conditioner. Pushing the button once, it's going to illuminate itself. Pushing it again will get you into the mode settings. You can go between your different mode settings, which is cool, heat, cool plus heat. So depending on what you have your room set to, it'll decide what it kicks in, and then you have a dry mode. So it's essentially just a dehumidifying mode. So the air conditioner is going to try and take as much humidity out of the air as possible. Back to off. You can run just the fan for the air conditioner with no cooling involved. Just pushing the button twice, you go between your different fan settings, high, low, and off. And then whenever you're in your air conditioning mode, cool. The fan setting auto turns it into an on-demand system, so it works like your house. Once the thermostat senses it's at temperature, it's going to kick the air conditioner off. Now another setting you can go to for the fan, you can take it off auto and put it on high or low, and in which case the fan's going to run regardless of what the temperature is set to. That fan is just going to keep running. Cycle it back to off just to get everything back off. The furnace does have one setting. When you're turning on the fan, it's just for the air conditioner. The furnace has one setting, it runs full time. Bathroom. Got your shower, pretty standard. And then of course you got your little light switch over here, which turns on an accent light. And then the main light, it's on its own center push button. Roof vent fan inside here. Clockwise all the way, opens it up. Now if you're gonna be traveling, you'd have to make sure you close it, because otherwise you can cause damage to the lid. And then of course if it were to start raining, it is going to get wet in here, so be mindful of that, unless of course you did go with a max air cover, which our parts department again could put together a quote if you'd wanted one installed. It's essentially a cover that goes right over top of this vent, and then you could leave this vent open and on whether you're traveling or if it's raining. It's not going to get wet in here. It's a great little thing to get for your camper. Again, contact your parts department, they'll put together a quote for you. Sink, hot and cold water, main GFI plug on the wall. All the plugs inside this unit are hooked up through GFI. If you ever have an outlet that doesn't work, this would be the first place I'd look, just making sure it's not tripped. Green light's telling you it's good. Test on the bottom to test it, make sure it works. Reset in the middle to reset the system. So if your outlet's not working, just hit the reset button. Then you got your thermostat for your water heater on the wall. Power button to turn it on. Output temp is what just telling you what the temperature is inside the water heater right now. Because there's no water running, obviously the heater is not going to be operating. Up and down at any time does change the setting of the set temperature that you want output. If you ever turn it right off the bat, you are going to be locked to 50 degrees. That's just an added safety feature so kids can't scold their hands. If you hold it up for 5 seconds, it unlocks it and will let you go up another 5 degrees to 55. Change it between Celsius and Fahrenheit with the press of a button. Power button to turn it off in case you didn't want it running whenever you turn it on. Once you crack the hot water on, there's currently no water in the unit, so I couldn't do that. There'd be a little fan symbol, then there's going to be a shower head with water trickling down it, and then of course the flame setting, letting you know that it is firing. Pretty simple. Nice little bathroom area. Right behind this door here, nice little storage pantry space. Then last but not least, we are stepping into the bunk room. Lights in here are on their own center push buttons. Taking a peek in here right now, you got a little area where you can put a TV, coax plug-in, as well as a couple 120 plugins, as well as a USB. Right down below here, you got your main fuse and breaker panel. Whenever a breaker trips, it'll sit in the middle, so you do just have to turn it off and then back on again to reset it, and all your fuses are on your right. Whenever one pops, there will be a red indicator light letting you know which one's popped. Now there's a couple different options you could run here. This bunk up, and you have a couch. The couch also does turn into another bed. Again, in case you would have more guests. You got 2 bunks on your right, which are fixed in their current positions. And then you got your top bunk, little latch here. Just pulling it down because it is on a gas strut, holding it up. Locking it into place, which there is a little spot for that to latch into. And again, you'd have yourself another bunk space. That is going to be it for this unit here. If you have any other questions, feel free to give us a call.